Wrap up this lesson, I want you to think about what we've done so far. And we have done a lot. We learned about the importance of activating our prior knowledge with that skimming. I'm going to switch over to that one. With that preview, skim, and scan. So when you're reading your books today, when you go on Epic or when you go to the digital library or when you pull a book off your bookshelf or magazine, I want you to do this. I want you to activate your prior knowledge. Preview, skim, and scan. Second thing we learned today was about asking questions. And so on this chart, you are probably fairly familiar with a KWL chart. What we know is that a second is a pretty short length of time. But then a question that we might have was what can be done in a second? And so then this book answers that question in the learn part. We learned about the woodpecker and the human eye can blink 7 times in a second. And so we read the middle part of the book. Another unit of time is 60 minutes and an hour. And then we went to the section of the book that was about the hour, and we kind of wondered what would happen in an hour. And the L part tells us two things that happened in that part of the book. And another section of the book was about a year is 12 months long. So those are things that we already know. And then from this book, we also learned some other things that can happen in a year. And so we can think about the humans cutting down 4 million trees and the United States moving farther away from Europe by 1 inch. So in the K section, you're thinking about what you already know based on this topic. In the middle section, this is where you're asking your questions. For example, in the one about the minute, we started reading about those heartbeats. And one of my questions was, how many times does the human heart beat? If this is a whale and this is, it was a bug. But if that's how many times, what about a human heart? And I wanted that connection to myself. And so I could probably write that question down, and then I could think about what did I find out the answer to that question. You do want to leave your questions in the want to know section. You want to leave them fairly open-ended so that your topic, if your book is not giving you the answer to that, if you're reading a book about a certain soccer player, you wouldn't want to know about scores or stats from a team that he's not on. So you want to make sure that the book and the questions are kind of general, the questions that you have. Don't be too specific with your questions. Kind of your wonderings, what are you curious about when you think about your topic of your book? Okay, so reading nonfiction is very deliberate. We talked about that at the very beginning, that when you read fiction, you can just dive right in. But when you read nonfiction, it's a totally different set of skills that you're using. You want to understand how to read the text in order to understand it and enjoy the book. We also want to read nonfiction very slowly, very carefully. When you read nonfiction, there's a lot of recording of that information while you're reading. So, now that I've read this book one time through, I would definitely, if I was using this book for learning, I definitely need to read it again and really think about what information am I supposed to read and remember. And so when we read nonfiction, we do want to read that slowly, carefully, thoughtfully. If we're going to learn the information, we have to really commit it to our memories. And a lot of times that's going to involve some note taking, like you can on this KWL chart, or it's going to involve drawing some pictures or writing down some words that you didn't know that you want to learn. We want to take this new information that we learn from this book, and we want to connect it in our brains to the old information. So everything in this L column needs to connect to something that was in the K column. So that's why that preview, scan, and skim is so important when we do nonfiction, because we want to answer those questions that we have about the topic or the text. These strategies are going to help us be better nonfiction readers. All right, so to help me help you, I need to make sure that you understood the lesson today. In the private comments, I want you to tell me what you learned about activating your prior knowledge. What did you learn today about activating your prior knowledge? I want to hear some things that you learned from this chart right here. And this will be in your assignment, and it's also in the slides. When you do your daily reading today, so you've got two parts of this assignment. First is a private comment. Second is going to be when you're doing your daily reading today, I want you to grab a nonfiction book, and I'm going to put this chart in your assignment. You can print it out. You can make your own just on a piece of paper. You can type right in this one if you choose. Whichever way works for you best. As long as I see evidence, I'm happy. So if you do it on paper or in your notebook, then you are going to snap a picture. I need to be able to read it. I want to see what you wrote. You're going to snap a picture and attach it. If you write in this in the digital copy, there's no problem with that. I'll be able to see. Everybody will have their own copy. I know the first question about 6 of you are going to ask me is, do I have to fill up all those lines? My answer is no. As long as I get a good gist of that you have read more than a page of this book. So I would say, on this chart, she had 3. Just depends on how interested you are in the book. I would say at least 3. If you want to do more, you can do more. The boxes will expand and get bigger. So don't worry about that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want you to do. Oh, up here, it helps me if you put the title of your book, because if you put the title, then I know kind of what questions to expect. I mean, obviously I have not read every nonfiction book out there, and I'm probably not going to go out there and search for the book that you read. But I did a little bit last week. If I wasn't familiar with the book or it sounded like a strange title or topic, sometimes I did go out there and take a peek at what you were reading. For books, you have access to Epic. You have access to the North Carolina Digital Library Kids section. And you can use your own personal books. You can use an old Scholastic. You can use magazines. Like at our house, we have Boys Life. So you can use a magazine if you want to. That works for me. And I'm trying to think. Oh, make sure it's a nonfiction book. A couple people last week kept, even into Thursday, showing me fiction. Nope, no fiction. It's got to be nonfiction this week. You're allowed to read fiction, but it's going to be in addition to your 20 minutes for this beginning part. We'll get back into our fiction once we finish these first 8 to 10 lessons. But for right now, you're going to read a lot of nonfiction in your daily reading. Okay? If you need help or if you have problems, what do? You got to reach out through a private comment. If I don't know that you're stuck, if you don't reach out and ask me, nobody else will see your private comment but me. If you need help, ask me. I'm sitting right here in the classroom. I'm checking work. I'm trying to get organized for having all of you come back. But yeah, if you need help, I am here to help you. So please reach out and ask me questions when you need to. Okay? All right. I will see you soon. Bye-bye, readers.